The sun goes down, the stars come out, and all that counts is here and now. My universe will never be the same. I'm glad you came.
My name is Jake Bailey. I'm 21 years old and I run track and cross country for the University of Tampa. Running has definitely taught me it's given me the ability to really channel a lot of my fears, strengths, weaknesses. Whenever I feel angry, sad, and any kind of emotion, running's always been that outlet. It's almost amazing how powerful it can impact you, really. I mean, when you're stressed out or if you're just overwhelmed. This building up here actually is one of the only buildings that was renovated and kept after the hurricane hit our hometown and destroyed the entire high school. This is one of the most historic buildings out of the school. It used to be just that building, and so they didn't want to tear it down. But the whole school's renovated now. I had to go throughout my whole high school career in portables, and one of the first things that they actually rebuilt for our school was the stadium with the track. Growing up, from before elementary school and all through school, all I really ever did sports-wise was just hockey. It's all I ever wanted to do. I saw that, being a young child, my brother was the one that, really the one that I looked up to, so everything that he did, I kind of wanted to follow in his footsteps. I never had the availability to play ice hockey, so I had to just kind of stick with what I had and play in the little local YMCA leagues, and but I loved it, and the likelihood of me, just a kid coming out of Florida, such an unlikely spot for hockey, becoming a professional hockey player, it just didn't seem to be something that was very plausible. And my brother had stopped playing years before I did, so it kind of seemed that he had moved on, and I knew that I was going to have to also eventually, unfortunately, and I did. Getting into running wasn't something that I had originally planned. It was more the fact that my brother had also gone to Charlotte and he had run track, and seeing him do that, I think that's kind of really all the motivation that I had needed, really. I was put in the 2 mile. That was my first race, and I can remember talking to Coach after the race and him telling me, well, congratulations, you're the fastest 2 miler on the team right now, so we'll see where we go from here. So yeah, just like that, it all started for me. It all kind of clicked that, that was the next step for me was track. It was something that I became passionate about pretty quickly. The mile kind of became like my thing, and I really wanted to conquer the mile, and we hadn't had anybody on our team that had broken 5 minutes in the mile, so that became my goal. I was set on it, I was determined, I wanted to break 5 minutes. It must have been our second or third meet, and I was put in the 4x8, the mile, and then just the 2 mile at the end. And we ran the 4x8, and I ran a 2:06. I ran the 2:06, and I can remember distinctively after the race, Coach Riley coming up to me on the sideline and just pointing at me and saying, you know, this is your race. And it was funny because it was that same meet that later on the mile came up, and I ran a 4:59. And I just dropped to my knees, and I was just so satisfied. Like it felt so good. I felt like I had just accomplished and worked so hard for that point. And for me, it was just something that was really, really motivating, and it was special for me. So I kind of eventually transitioned from the 2 mile to the mile and down to the half mile. And it just became, that became my race for the rest of the season, the rest of my time in high school. And from that point on, it became, let's break 2 minutes. When I first got to UT, I started going to the track practices, and that's when I met Ryan. From the first time that I had met him, it was obvious that he was one of those kids that had that personality where it didn't matter if it was just you and him hanging out. He always seemed to have a good time. He always seemed to kind of bring the room to life. He really knew just how to have a good time. After a while, some of the guys on the team had decided to get a house off campus. The 5 of us would look at houses, and then we also had our other friend Steve. It was the 6 of us. And we went to look at the house, and it was 5-bedroom, and I remember looking at it, and then at the end, somebody saying, oh well, who's it gonna be? Is it gonna be Steve or is it gonna be Jake? I remember Ryan looking over at me and kind of just being like, don't worry. Just kind of pointing over at me and being like, it's gonna be you. It's gonna be you. When I first got to UT, I was still on that 800 kick. I had to get that sub 2 minute race. It was still really important to me. It was on my mind a lot. And when I got there, Ryan, that had been something that he really wanted to do too. I know he was really motivated to do it, and I remember we would both give each other a little bit of trash talk now and then about who could do it first. Our coach could only run, I think it was 3 or 4 people in the 800. And I think somehow Ryan was on the outside looking in, and our coach had decided to take me and run me in the 800 first. And Ryan has set up a meet to run by himself. I think it was up in Claremont. I was worried, Ryan was going to do it out in Claremont, and I know he was worried about if I was going to do it at USF. Ryan had ended up running, I think it was a 2:05. And then I think at USF it was a 2:03 for me. Neither one of us broke it, so we still had work to do. I remember coming back to the house that we had lived in late. It was one of our roommates' birthdays, and so naturally, 5 college guys living in a house like that, we had to throw a party. So I remember walking in, and everybody, the party was in full swing, everybody was having a good time. And of course, one of the first people I noticed was Ryan being loud and rambunctious, just being Ryan. He was hilarious. I had decided to kind kind of go to bed pretty early at night because I was tired and I had to get up and go to work the next morning. And I remember right around maybe 3 o'clock where I remember hearing a lot of commotion downstairs. I remember being woken up just by hearing somebody yell. I could only hear bits and pieces of it, but it was, somebody was asking, how big were they, who was it, what happened, and maybe it was 20 minutes later, and I remember my roommate Ben came into my room and he woke me up. He didn't hesitate. He just straight out said it, and I can remember him still saying it. Ryan and Mike just got held up walking back from the bar. Ryan was shot and he just died. That was a sequence that I don't think I'll ever forget. It's permanently, like, that whole night is just burned into my brain. Like I felt like we just sat in the living room for forever. After that, I don't remember much more than just trying to go back to sleep, even though I couldn't, and I really didn't. This bridge right here is actually the spot where Ryan was shot. He was killed, and once he was shot, he made it about 12 or 13 steps, like just past the end of the bridge here, and collapsed at the telephone pole. We had thought it was a good idea to stay in the house because Ryan was the one that had found that house, and he was so excited to live in that house because it really was a great house. And then Ryan was the most excited because he had found it. He had put in the legwork. We felt like we should keep the house because it was kind of a way to remember Ryan. After the semester had ended, I came back to the house. I happened to be the first one to come back to the house after spring break, and we had been robbed. Somebody had broken into our house and stolen a lot of things from us. I think what matters is I worked my butt off to get here. At the end of the day, I still ran for Ryan, so that's all that matters.
Kevin or Mike, I knew you had him as soon as I knew he was going to leave. You had it every...
That first year of my time at UT was really difficult for me with the death of Ryan after we had gotten robbed, and the following semester I had been suspended. There were some paperwork issues that weren't sorted out before I had ran my track season, so I had technically run my first season ineligible. So they turned around and suspended me for cross country the next season.
And that cross country season was all dedicated to Ryan, and you couldn't even be a part of it.
Yeah. The UT Distance Classic came around my junior year, and his family was there for the race, and it's a big meet every year. By the time the 800 race comes around, the crowd is always pretty big by that time. The stadium is lit up. It's a really exciting atmosphere, and it's something that I look forward to every year. It's my favorite meet. I hadn't broken two yet, so it was really something. I had to do it. If there was going to be a race for me to do it, that was it. And I can even remember taking a permanent marker, and I wrote Ryan's initials on my chest under my jersey, and we also had his initials printed on all of our jerseys. And so the gun went off for the race, and I remember just getting out, and the first lap was just kind of a blur. I remember just going through the first lap, like, you know, going through the motions. It was just like any other 800. And it was coming through, you know, the end of it, coming through the home stretch, the crowd, everybody getting really into it. It just felt like it was my time to do it. And I just remember kicking as hard as I could and coming through the finish line and hitting a 159. And I remember just, for me, I really can't think of another time in my life that I had that feeling. I couldn't take the smile off my face. Being there and doing what I did at that race in front of all of my teammates and in front of his family, and just knowing that it was for Ryan and it was for me, and just I can't explain the feeling that I had. And it was really a breakthrough season for me. I ran the best that I'd ever run, and our team actually won our conference title for the first time in UT men's history. It was really a big accomplishment for me because that I finished 7th man on the team, and it was really special for me. I'd run my best time yet, and it just really was a great way to end my junior year of running on a really high note. These spikes right here I've been through just about every race in my entire running career with, from a 400 to an 8K. These are the spikes I used my senior year to break 5 minutes. Eventually used them to win the district title with the 4x8 team and get our school record my senior year of high school. And I ran my first cross country race in college with these, and these are also the spikes that I used to break 2 minutes in the 800 in the Ryan McCall Memorial. I guess it all worked out for the better that hockey didn't pan out.
Jake Lane, Gretzky Bailey. He said it's going to be Jake Prefontaine.
Maybe instead of Gretzky, maybe some Prefontaine action.